If you've been following me for a while, you know how I like small form factor PCs. You might have seen my Dan case build, or maybe the update I did to it a few months ago. Well, now I added a digital LED strip in it, and it was a bit complicated to do so I thought to myself, why not make a video about it? So first, I ordered two 1 meter strips of digital LEDs. I only needed 1 meter for my case, but I also installed one in my work computer, so that's why I went with two. And I'll have links to everything I bought down in the description if you want to make sure you get the right parts. Now, what's up with digital LED strips? What sets them apart is that each LED is assignable individually. With regular strips, you can only select a single color for the whole strip, but with these you can pretty much do what you want as long as the software you use to control the strip support it. These have 3 pins and they don't represent the RGB channels that regular strips have. They're actually meant to send the digital data that tells the LEDs what to do. Now, to drive these, you'll need a motherboard that supports digital LED strips. Fortunately, my Asus H370i and Gigabyte H370N boards both have a digital strip header, but I'll get into details later. These strips have 30 LEDs per meter and have a black backing so that it matches the inside of my case better that way. Also, with the voltage and amp specs of my motherboards, I couldn't go much higher than 30 LEDs in total. I went with the IP65 rated one too, so that the LEDs are somewhat protected with a rubberized coating. Now, my case is really small and there's no way I can fit the strip in a 1 meter length directly, so I also ordered L-shaped 3-pin connectors to cut the strips at specific lengths and make turns in my case. They're 10mm wide, which was the right width for the strips I ordered. So I had everything on hand. Now let's see how I set up the LED strips. So first, I cut the extra wires on the end that won't be used to connect with the motherboard, which was the male connector. Then the strips ending actually have 5 wires, 2 of which are loose. These are meant to increase the voltage if you run longer strips, I think, but we don't need them in our case, so I just cut them using flush cutters. I was also able to reinstall the heat shrink on both ends to cover the solder joints. So I was ready to perform the installation in my case. I had all the panels removed to make sure I had access to every surface of the case. It's super small, so I definitely needed to cut the strip at multiple points so that it fits in the entire case. The strip has cutting areas between each LED, so it's quite easy to get close to the exact length you need. After that, I needed to remove part of the rubberized protecting sleeve that's covering the strip with a utility knife. That's really needed so that the L-shaped connectors can be installed, otherwise the strip would be too thick and it might not conduct well enough either. If you go with the non-IP65 version of the strip, this step won't be needed. Now, I started assembling the L-shaped connectors and connecting them to the strips I just got. Then I tried to fit the assembled strips in the case approximately where I wanted them to be. The thing is, I needed to install the other L-shaped connector after installing the strip, as the opening where it must go through is barely big enough for the strip alone, so the connector wouldn't go through. It was a bit hard to work in there as everything is packed, but I got my way around it. So I was ready to install the last strip in, and I cut it to size and removed the rubberized sleeve to expose the contacts again. Then I installed one end of the connector to it, and I could attach it to the rest of the L-shaped section that was already there. I didn't remove any of the double-sided state backing as I wasn't sure with the layout, but here's how it looked near the motherboard. I then wanted to see if it actually worked, so I connected the strip to my motherboard. There's no guidance on which side it must be installed, but with this Gigabyte board, the red wire must face the I/O shield. You don't need any adapter, which wasn't the case with my Asus board at work, but it was included in the box at least. The only thing is that you might need an extension cable like I did, as the strip's end wasn't close enough to the Mobo's connector. And for that, I bought a 3-pin fan cable and it worked perfectly. Now, I liked how it was laid out with all the L-shaped connectors, but I wanted to test the strip before sticking it in. So I powered my PC on, and unfortunately, only the first part of the strip was lighting up. The problem was that I inverted the first L-shaped connector, so it wouldn't transmit the right signals at the right places. So I switched it around, and then we were getting power on the other strips. These L-shaped connectors don't always transmit perfectly if you move them around, so you need to find a sweet spot where every part of the strip is getting the signal. I started removing the paper backing of the strips and started sticking the strips in while still making sure that contacts were made with the other strips. It wasn't always easy, but I got it working, and with the strips now in place, the chances of the connectors getting moved around and not making proper contact between two strips were much lower. So here's how it looked like. I was quite happy with the result. Again, I needed an extension so that the strip could sit properly, which I ordered just after. I left the paper backing there to make sure the double-sided tape would stick well when I received the extension. I also had a last strip section left, so I installed it at the bottom of the case using only a straight connector. In fact, I shouldn't have cut this last strip. It would have looked better. So in conclusion, I'm really happy with the result. It costed less than $10 per PC because, I did the same thing with my work PC. Only thing there, I didn't need to cut the strip, so it was much easier. And this one had an adapter for digital LED strips, so it acted as my extension cable. Both PCs look amazing, and it really adds a lot of customization in terms of look in neutral themed PCs. And I really like that the strips have a black backing, making them look as they were part of the case in the first place. My main concern though is how Gigabyte's RGB Fusion and ASUS's AuraSync softwares are so buggy. Both softwares are a bit limited in what they can do with the lights, but in different ways. As an example, you can set every LEDs manually with Gigabyte's software. And with the built-in animations, you're often restricted in terms of color with what Gigabyte picked. As for ASUS, the software loaded once, but after the next reboot, it wouldn't open again. I had to uninstall it and then reboot a few times and then it would open up, but only once like it did the first time. The software is a bit better though, as you can cycle between a specific range of colors, which looks really good in my opinion. And on both PCs, after you reboot, the LEDs don't go to their previous settings most of the time, so you need to open the RGB software so that they go back to their previous settings, which is kind of annoying. So if you plan on installing an LED strip in your case, you might want to consider that these issues can happen. I've heard comparable issues with MSI software as well, so I hope manufacturers will improve their RGB softwares anytime soon. As always, links to all the parts I used in today's video will be linked down below if you want to check them out for yourself. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you like the video if you did, and if you didn't, just let me know why in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe if you still haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.